I just wanna be part of your symphony. We hold me tight and not let go.
What is going on, guys? Rogue TCG here, bringing another Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG deck profile. You all voted for it, and I'm very, very happy to be bringing it to you. This is That Grass Looks Greener deck. So you all voted for it, and I made it pretty up in the air on what I was going to be doing with That Grass Looks Greener. And if anyone knows me, y'all already know I love Tearlament. I like Branded, and I'm pretty alright with the Thunder Dragons and some of the shit-alls, as well as the Bystials are quite neat, and I think I just decided to throw them all together because all of these cards like being milled. Like, Tearlaments obviously like being milled. The Branded stuff, there's a bunch of really crazy mills in here. Cartesia's good, Albion the Shrouded Dragon's good, Tragedy's really good, Albaz is really good. Like, a lot of these are good. Opening protects our cards in the graveyard, and opening also has a positive synergy that sends cards from our hand to the graveyard for card effect, positively synergizing with the Tearlaments. And then, of course, we do have the one Branded fusion that it's limited, but there are a lot of super cool synergies in this list. I don't want to say them all right here, but let's get into the video and let us talk about them. Starting off our list, we are on 4 copies of That Grass Looks Greener, 1 of the actual card, and 3 thrust in order to find it. And then that's it for our, That Grass Looks Greener little engine of sorts. We're not playing Left Arm Offering. That card's really bad, and if you want to lose to Ash, that's how you lose to Ash. If they Ash or Grass Looks Greener, that's not the end of the world. You can still play not having to worry about Ash Blossom. Like, it's not so bad. But now for our Tearlaments, we're on triple Rhinoheart being able to dump Tearlament from deck to graveyard. Triple Kashtira being able to either mill 3 while on field or mill 2 when milled. And then 1 piece of Merly, Havness, and Sheeran, all having effects that can mill cards on their summon if you summon them in a specific way. At least in case of Sheeran, that's the case, but they all fuse using themselves in cards in your graveyard, field, and hand when they're sent to the graveyard by a card effect, aka That Grass Looks Greener. We're on triple copies of Perliano, being a removal spell buff and being able to add any Tearlament monster from deck to hand, really good. Triple Tearlament Scream, if we mill it, we get to add a Tearlament Trap, and if it's on field and the Tearlament is summoned, or if the Tearlament's already on field and something is summoned, we get to mill 3, which is really good. We're on 2 copies of Tearlament Grief. This card, when activated, special summons the Tearlament and then sends the Tearlament from field to graveyard, functionally acting as either a Foolish Burial or trading a Tearlament name on field for a different one. This card's really strong, and being able to add back a banished Tearlament Trap when sent to the graveyard by card effect. And then we are on 1 Tearlament Heartbeat, target a spell trap on the field and just, spin it back into your deck, and then you have to send the card from your hand to the graveyard as card effect. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, we get to target a Tearlament Trap in our graveyard and add it to our hand. We're on triple copies of Soliak. When sent to graveyard by card effect, this adds a Tearlament monster from deck to hand. And then while this is on field, we can send monster from our face-up field to the graveyard as card effect to negate the effect of a face-up monster on our opponent's side of the field, namely our Tearlaments, which will all trigger. We're on 1 copy of Metanoise, being able to Book a Moon a monster, as well as Foolish Burying, that's a difficult word. Or if sent to the graveyard, being able to add a Tearlament monster from graveyard to hand. And then lastly, 1 copy of Tribute Karma, being able to, non-field effect doesn't matter. In the graveyard, we can banish to add a card that mentions Vsauce Starfrost, so any of the previously named spells and traps it can search. But that's it for our Tearlaments. Now on to our Branded. We're on double Aluber Jester of Despia, double Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous, able to fuse, and Aluber's main purpose is to grab Branded Fusion. And Cartesia can fuse using itself and other cards, or can just be, poly on legs, not even having to fuse itself, and they can add itself back from graveyard to hand at the end of turn. 1 Despian Tragedy, if it's in the graveyard, we can banish it to add a Branded spell trap from graveyard, set it to our field, rather. And if it's sent to graveyard by a card effect, we get to add a Despia monster from deck to hand. We're on 1 Ad Libitum of Despia. During our main phase, it has an effect that doesn't matter, but if this card is sent to the graveyard or banished as fusion material, we can target a Despia or a little later higher fusion that's banished or in our graveyard and just special summon it. When we're playing a fusion deck, if you look at our extra, there ain't nothing but fusions in there, so this card is going to be coming up. 1 copy of Guiding Quem the Virtuous. This card's quite expensive. We don't want to be playing more of it than we can until the Megatins come out, and it's tutorable off of Branded Opening. On summon, it dumps anything that mentions Fallen of Albaz, namely Cartesia, and then it reborns something from your graveyard that mentions Fallen of Albaz whenever a card leaves an extra deck. But that is a once per turn reborn. Run 1 Albion the Shrouded Dragon with a beneficial graveyard effect and is just treated as Fallen of Albaz. 1 copy of the mentioned Fallen of Albaz, triple branded opening, able to protect our cards in the graveyard. 1 copy of Branded Fusion, using cards from our deck as fusion material. And then lastly, 1 copy of Branded Red, the most cuttable of these cards. This is kind of like a greedy card if since we are playing a pretty alrighty, I want to say alright, but I want to say it's a larger than normal branded package for Tearlament deck. Branded in red is kind of greedy because it does allow us to go into our Guardian Chimera play. But that implies that we are getting to our Guardian Chimera play in a deck that is very, very random. But that's it for our branded cards. Now on to our Thunder Dragon cards. We're on very, very few of them just because all we really need to do make our Thunder Dragon Colossus is just have a Thunder Dragon Dark and Graveyard that we're able to banish somehow. So we're on triple Dark and double Hawk. The idea is we can banish Dark to add Hawk, use Hawk to reborn the banished Dark, and then that is just a Colossus right there. We don't need our Roar, we're not linking off materials, so it's actually a little bit difficult to get the monster that we summoned off of Roar off our side of the field. So I decided that this was actually going to be a more optimal thing that we can do, and we can banish the cards from our graveyard using any of these bestial monsters, or we can banish it using Albion the Branded Dragon in our graveyard. Since this is a dark, we can use Albion in order to make Lubellion using our Thunder Dragon cards. We are on the aforementioned Bestials, 1 Saronir, 1 Magnemite, 1 Druisworm, and 1 Baldrake. You could probably swap out a Saronir for another Druisworm or the Baldrake for a Bestial Lubellion. It's kind of all up in the air depending on what you would like to do. I just personally prefer this ratio of Bestials. And I'm personally not running Lubellion because I'm opting to not play any of the continuous spells just because they're not really good mills unless I'm playing too many of them. We're on triple fusion deployment. We're a fusion related strategy. We can either grab Fallen of Albaz, Blazing of Cartesia, or Tearlament Rhino Heart, 3 really great ones. We also have our Blazing Cartesia, Fallen of Albaz, and Tearlament Rhino Heart right here, and triple King of the Swamp, as well as 3 copies of Tearlament Kitkalos right here to be named as any fusion material. This is just really good in all of these strategies, being able to replace something that we are just straight up missing. And then we're on a very small Shaddoll package. We're on 1 Squamata. When sent to graveyard by a card effect, we can send a Shaddoll from deck to graveyard. And then 1 Beast, when sent to graveyard by a card effect, lets us draw a card. And then lastly, we're on 2 copies of Polymerization. King of the Swamp can search it from deck to hand, and we are a pure fusion strategy, so this is just a combo piece. As well as if it's in our graveyard, it protects our Guardian Chimera. That's it for our main deck, a nice solid 60. Now on to our extra. For our Tearlament cards, we're on 1 Tearlament Rukalos. We can only fuse this using King of the Swamp. However, this is just a summon negation, kind of like the DDD Wave Hiking Caesar. 1 copy of Kaleido Heart. This is not only a really powerful end card that we want to end our boards on, but also like an extender. If this card is sent from field to graveyard, we can special summon it from our graveyard and then send a Tearlament card from our deck to the graveyard. So it sends whatever we want to the graveyard, monster, spell, trap, whatever, and reborns itself, and then on summon, we get to shuffle a card on field into the deck. So yeah, just a really powerful card. We would like to ideally end on either this, or Rukalos, or both. We're on double Lubellion, the Searing Dragon needs Albaz in a dark, which can be made using our Tearlaments if need be. We can pitch a card in order to shuffle cards from our banished, face-up field, and I believe hand into the deck in order to fusion summon a monster. And then we're on Albion, which is kind of like a little bit of the opposite. It needs a Light and Fallen of Albaz, so this one we just kind of have to make with Branded Fusion or Blazing Cartesia. But this does say, if this is fusion summon, we can fusion summon a level 8 or lower fusion monster from our extra deck, except for itself, by banishing fusion materials from our hand, field, and graveyard, able to trigger our Thunder Dragons. It can also banish our Tearlaments in the case where we have a card we can add it back from banishment to hand, but I don't believe we are playing that card, so no need to worry about that. And then the card that we're ideally going to be fusing one of these 2 into is Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon, the main card we want to be ending on with the branded cards, just being a non-targeting banish, while also sending one of the other to the graveyard. And if we send Albion, we get to float. Because Albion, at the end of the turn, if it's in the graveyard, we can set 1 branded spell from our deck to our field, being branded in red, namely. We're on one Despia Queritus, being able to make everything 0 and then floats into either a Despia or a Fallen of Albaz from our deck if it's sent to the graveyard, or I think it's just removed from the field by your opponent. One Grand Guignol, the Dusk Dragon. This is our Cartesia target. It's also really crazy in this deck, being an extender, because we can send any level 6 or higher light or dark monster from our deck or extra deck to the graveyard, namely being either Albion the Branded Dragon, any Bestial that we need, or even, in theory, a Thunder Dragon Hawk if we really need it. You can also send an Albion the Shrouded Dragon, but the fact that it's such a flexible card means it's very powerful in this strategy. And then if this card's on our field or in our graveyard and your opponent special summons a monster using a monster effect, we can banish it and then special summon a Despia monster from our extra. So this Queritus, we're never actually going to be hard making it. This is only a target in our deck to be cheating out with Blazing Cartesia, although since we are playing Queritus, we actually can hard make it if we want to. We're on one copy of Masquerade the Tax Dragon. Just being able to burn your opponent is just good against some certain decks. I wish I could play 2, but the extra X space is quite tight in this deck. I do want to play 2 Lubalion just because it's such a powerful card. Since we are a pure fusion strategy, recycling our fusions is critical in order to stay in the grind game. And then we are on one copy of Predaplant Dragus Stapelia, also being able to reuse our fusions with our Tearlaments. One copy of El Shaddoll Winda, just being a floodgate that we can work with our Shaddolls and our Tearlaments. One copy of Thunder Dragon Colossus, another floodgate that we use with our Thunder Dragons, and then one copy of Guardian Chimera, which can either pop multiple cards or draw multiple cards, and then if we have a Polygon Graveyard, it kind of protects itself in some sort of way. But that's actually going to be about it for the deck profile. I think this deck is super cool. I am just going to be showing you one
for the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all later.
Let's get right into
Bye-bye.
Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you wanted to talk to more Yu-Gi-Oh players like yourself, I would highly recommend checking out our Discord server. Link is going to be in the description, as well as the QR code on screen. We do talk somewhat frequently about Yu-Gi-Oh and the current meta, so I would really enjoy to see you there. As well as we do recently now have channel memberships available on our YouTube channel, where we have 3 different tiers. We have Super Supporter at $2 a month, where you get loyalty badges, emojis, guaranteed comment responses, a shout out at the end of every video, as well as access to the members only Discord channel, where you get early sneak peeks at future videos. There is the Giga Supporter at $5 a month, where you have early access to all new videos about a day or 2 before they go up, as well as all the previous offers. And for $15 a month, we do have our final tier, which is going to be Femboy Fanatic. You get a guaranteed customized video every single month, as well as 1 hour of my time. Could be for anything you'd like. You want a duel? Absolutely. You want me to help build a deck? Absolutely. You want to play some Helldivers? Sure. I'll do anything for an hour once a month. But supporting does help me out quite a lot, and it does help me produce all of these videos. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be seeing y'all later. Bye-bye.